Hello and welcome to Inspiring Ideas podcast. In this episode, we've got a very interesting guest. He is a founder of Coastr, which is a mobility tech startup, and looking to reimagine the car rental sector using technology innovation. He used to work with PwC Consulting as an enterprise architecture head, and he has also worked previously with the Royal Bank of Scotland in their strategy and architecture team. He's got varied experience across banking, payments, insurance, retail, education, and technology sectors. Welcome, Biswajit Kundu Roy. How are you today?
Hi, Madhu. Hi, Abhi. Great to be on this Inspiring Ideas podcast. First of all, it's a great initiative, and thank you again for having me. It's a great start to the Saturday as well, so I'm looking forward to kind of having a engaging conversation.
Pleasure is ours, to be honest. Thank you so much, Bis. And let's start with your life journey and the passion for technology, the architecture. So, could you talk about your life journey, please, Bis?
Absolutely, no, happy to. So I think I'll probably start from right at the beginning, right? So I'm a software engineer by background. I did my engineering back in 2008 in Bangalore, or completed it rather. I worked with Capgemini for a few years with them, and more as a kind of software engineer. But even as I was, writing code or developing something for customers or clients, there was always the desire to really understand where this technology is really making an impact or influencing the lives of others. So I still remember this regular discussions with our business analyst in the team, and I would be like very, very curious, like, why am I writing this code? What is this doing? And so that kind of led me to really explore the idea of going beyond, because I didn't want to be just a software programmer writing code and not understanding what my work is causing an influence in other people's lives. So in 2010, I decided to move to the UK to do my master's. I did my studies in MSc in Business and Management from Strathclyde University. And following that, I went and joined RBS and in their technology grad scheme. That's where I met you, Madhu, 10 years ago, a long time. And then working again with RBS, I slowly made my move to the strategy and architecture team. And I think that's where my foundations of being a technologist who understands business and utilizes technology to solve business problems started. Because I used to have this regular kind of engaging conversations within the team and with various people in the bank about why this technology is important. How do we solve, a business problem using technology? And I think at some point I realized that's the intrinsic part of my own, skills or my own interest, which I'm a problem solver by nature. And I think technology and kind of thinking about ideas and trying to put pieces of puzzle together comes naturally to me. So I then went on to join PwC, who kind of headhunted me for a role, and stayed with them for about 6.5 years, and built up myself to become kind of the leader of enterprise architecture within the PwC community. But it's always been the kind of passion of really trying to solve business problems, because I remember my time with clients working, and sometimes even traveling between different countries, with different cities, trying to spend time with them, trying to understand the business impact, etc. And but it has always been about really trying to get to the bottom of how do I solve this problem, for the user, for the customer, using technology. And at some point, then it naturally transitioned into Coastr, because through Coastr, I'm trying to solve a problem for myself. I'm quite a regular traveler, both for holidays, for leisure, and for work as well. And I used to regularly rent cars whenever I'm traveling, and the painful friction in the whole process and in the whole journey just made me think, like, this is a big problem. Everyone is facing it. How do I get to the bottom of it? And in that pursuit, I think the whole Coastr journey started. And I would say it still goes back to my kind of intrinsic nature is I'm really trying to solve this problem, and I feel technology can really play a huge difference. And that's what Coastr is about, really.
Yeah, I mean, before we jump on to Costa, I just had a wonderful question regarding the passion that you had on architecture, the passion that you had on the business problem that you're going to solve. So I think they're two different things altogether. One is the domain, and the other one is the technology. So there are a lot of grads coming into the market. You know, they've got different and varied levels of technology acumen.
Yeah.
What advice would you give them? Because is strategy and architecture the only place to go, or you can still have the business acumen and understand a little bit of technology so that you're not left alone in the room that you're talking, in the room. So can you give some advices on that?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I say the same thing to our technology and product team as well, which is, our motto is think like if you're a product manager, you need to think like a developer. And if you're a developer, you need to think like a product manager. Because at the end of the day, you have to understand the context of what you're building and developing, right? So, I mean, the advice is quite simple, and at least that's how I like to always keep it, because often you'll find that in the world of business and technology, people are always talking about complexity. There's so much complexity here. It's very hard, very difficult. Actually, sometimes you just have to step away and look at the bigger picture, right? And that's what enterprise architecture is always about, looking at the bigger picture. And when you step away kind of from that kind of noise and complexity, you start to make the connections. That's what I regularly try and do. I remember this one kind of project I was working while I was at PwC, where we were doing a merger and acquisition. I was helping with a carve out, and it was a kind of an insurance client, and I was working with them, trying to help them understand how to move away from their existing kind of processes, technology structure to the new world. And they kept telling me about this complexity, legacy, and I'm sure you'll be familiar as well, coming from banking world, it's pretty much the same. But when you start to take a step back and really think about what does the business want to achieve, how can we solve that? Then the pieces of the puzzle start to become much more easy. And that's what kind of, as an enterprise architect, I felt the tools and the structure and the framework really helps. And believe it or not, like even again, going back to Coastr, the first thing I did with kind of my founding team member was to draw this kind of architecture of how we think the Coastr product would look like. Right? And this was done 3 years back, and we still refer to it. I believe me, like we are still developing on that vision. And so having that big picture is very, very important.
Going back to why we do what we do, Simon Sinek. Good one, Bis.
That's fantastic, Bis. Bis, I just want to understand and talk more from a mindset perspective. Now, when I look at your career, you worked in architecture, consulting, and all that. And now imagine then there was a moment in your life that decided I want to start a company. And startup world is crazy and scary as well. We hear all the stories that 95% of startups fail. I would like you to share what was your mindset, or what were you thinking when you decided that I want to take this plunge and start a company?
It's a very good question, Avi, and I think I'll go back to the kind of whole world of complexity and scary, because I think we hear a lot about these things, and sometimes it starts to create mind blocks and barriers in people's mind to take the next step, take the plunge. I guess some of it is what you can control. And going back to my own kind of days, I think I just decided, what do I feel passionately about? What do I care enough to actually spend, 24 hours in a day if I have to, right? And I think finding that idea and the thing you feel passionate about is the first thing in that step. If you have found that, then all of the things naturally align, because then you're no longer worried about the risk and others, because you're really passionate about it. So to any entrepreneur trying to make that step, I think the first thing is find what you're passionate about, I would advise. And then once you have found it, don't worry of the risk. I think you need to take the plunge. In addition to kind of managing that, what I would say is they shouldn't spend a long time trying to develop the perfect product. I think that's what one of the things we did in Coastr as well. We are all about kind of bite-sized innovation, right? So we try to get things early to the customer, try and really test out the idea. So we did the same thing with our product. We didn't want to wait to build the perfect product. It was like, however, I used to call it the ugly baby when it went to the customer first time to try it. But we weren't scared because we had those customers who were prepared to make that effort with us. And I think co-creation is a huge opportunity in the product development and kind of startup sector. There's a lot of customers who actually have pain points, or users. They would like to co-create. Everyone wants to be heard. So if you create the right opportunities for co-creation, then it allows you to innovate faster, because then you can get something to the hands of the user, and that's where you get feedback and create the feedback loop. That's what we do on a day-to-day basis at Coastr.
I think those two are some of the great points that you mentioned about co-creation and then fail fast. In terms of the customers and acceptability, there could be a number of challenges in itself, because you took the bold step of giving the ugly baby. How do you know that customers are going to just throw it out, or they're going to embrace the baby, dress it up, and make it neat? So what are the challenges that you faced from a customer perspective and also from a team perspective? So how do you know that you're going to, what are the key tells that you're succeeding?
Yeah, I think the first thing in that journey and the process is not to be afraid, right? And afraid of failure for that matter. And I think I picked this up quite well when I was a part of this group where we went to Silicon Valley. It was called the Silicon Valley Accelerator Program, and it was like a 2 weeks or 10 days in the Silicon Valley, meeting different kind of companies, people from different companies, and really learning about their culture, right? And I went up to meet some people in Facebook as part of that, and what I heard was incredible, because in Facebook, again, what they tend to do is they celebrate, or rather, they openly talk about failures, right? They encourage people to go and talk about failures so that they can learn from it. And they're encouraged not to worry and fear failure. But what they do encourage is fail fast, right? So I think we that's the first thing that we need to understand is take the fear factor out, first of all, and go and try it out. We'll never know what the customer will like or not like unless we have actually asked the customer. So that's what the first kind of step in the process. Secondly, it's how you position it, right? So, and this goes back to my own PwC days of consulting, and I think the best thing we have found is, again, the co-creation approach, where you have almost contracted with the user to say, look, it's not going to be pretty. It's going to be lots of defects, lots of bugs potentially. But as long as you're prepared to come with us into that journey, we will get this to you early, so you can be part of the co-creation. And that has a powerful effect, because people then go, okay, yeah, fine. I mean, I don't mind. And as soon as they've said, I don't mind, then that it's not going to be a failure, because they're going to be open to the idea of having something crude in their hands. And then the final thing is the learning aspect. I would say that, you have to learn. Like, if you repeat the same mistakes again and again, one of the things I'll tell you about us is our product development process has, also improved and streamlined again and again. Like, initially there used to be lots of bugs when we release something. Now we don't. Like, one of the things we have done over the last 6 months, or sort of from beginning of this year, is any code that goes into production, for example, goes through a thorough check, and it is always going to be bug free. We won't release anything until they're bug free.
This I've seen, looking at your LinkedIn profile, I've seen that you work with some really big multinational companies, right? And when you work with multinational companies, you got a little bit more funds to play with, right? You got a bit more flexibility, and then you jump into the startup world, right? What adjustments you were required to make so that you can be successful in a completely new role?
Yeah, well, starting from not having an office in the first place, I think that's the first thing. But incidentally, the pandemic really helped in that, because then you didn't need an office at all. So everything was virtual. But it's a great question, Avi, because I think the fundamentals of a startup is you have limited or no resource sometimes, and you have to manage and kind of still advance and meet milestones, goals, traction with that limited resource. So it's an ever and continuous battle. I think most of my time and energy goes into how we continue to progress with that kind of limited resource. Cash flow, if you speak with any startups, that will sit on the top priority and kind of focus for any entrepreneur. You have to make sure that you have enough cash to carry on going and do what you want. Going back to kind of the startup journey, though, I think the first step in that process that we went through in Coastr was we bootstrapped. So I think a large part of a year or more than a year, me, Rishabh, who's our head of technology based in Bangalore, Lee, and a few others, we just bootstrapped, without spending any money. It was more about spending the effort and energy. We tried to push the MVP into the market as much as possible. We went and spoke to customers on our own time. Some of our were still, doing two jobs almost. We were still working. Me, I was working with PwC. Rishabh was working with BT. Lee was working with his kind of former employers. But we were doing this on the kind of sides. And then once we realized that, yes, this is a viable idea, we had some early adopters or customers who were prepared to co-create with us. We spent some time kind of interviewing them, designing some prototype. We then went on to actually raise a little bit of money and then get that kind of developed and into the market. So the moral of the story is, first of all, you need to break your kind of life cycle of resources or milestones rather. And on those milestones, you have to plan your resources. And then, as you continue to hit those milestones, I think you'll be able to raise more funding, get more resources to deliver the next milestone. Right. And we saw that, for example, Amazon are a great company for that matter. And, they did the hard work and the heavy lifting in, planning and executing the nuts and bolts with the smaller SME marketplace, SME owners. And that resulted in a really streamlined marketplace, online marketplace for them.
So you talked about building a foundation, and sometimes you require mentors to help you with that. Do you have any mentors that are helping you in this process?
Oh,
how did you find them?
There are plenty, and I think again, as an entrepreneur, there are two things you will always have to do is build your network and always listen to them, right? And listening is key here. And people will give you advice, give you ideas, give you mentorship, and sometimes they can be harsh as well, but you have to just take them on and really learn from it. Also, the ability to actually take the right advice is also important, because every other person's experience is shaped, or their ideas are shaped by their experience, right? So they may have a different point of view, and again, it's not about being right or wrong. It's about really understanding what's relevant. So for me, I think I speak with so many people, and even at the starting of the company, I think just in the ideation phase, I think I spoke to about 150 to 200 people just to share what I was thinking, get their kind of feedback on it. Even if they're not in the sector, have no clue about what I was talking about, it was just good to hear those cold point of views, and then learn from that process, refine, innovate, and finally, as we have started on this journey, what I try and do is have a good set of advisors, mentors, a good support mechanism And they don't always have to have a formal role either, right? For example, in Coastr, we have the non-execs who are kind of our more formal advisors to the board, to the strategy. We have a set of other advisors as well, from the industry or from a funding side of things. And then there are personal mentors or advisors who I speak with because it's easy for me to go and speak with them about what's going on. The other network which I try to build is just peer network, finding people who are in a similar or similar-ish journey with me, and being able to go and talk to them. I've got quite a few good friends who are also kind of CEOs of startups, and it's great to kind of go and speak with them over a pint of beer, discussing strategy. I can't emphasize enough the importance of networking.
Yeah.
For every reason, and not just to raise money and raise investors, but also partnerships and getting your word, your brand out there. And I think again, looking or taking a step back, I feel like I've spoken with 1,000 people in the last 3 years. That's the kind of network I had to build.
You've always been pretty much outspoken, outgoing, and talking to people, learning about feedback and all that. So I can vouch for that. Wonderful, and keep going.
Thank you, Madhu.
About the team, Bis, so I'm sure you must have some pretty high standards in terms of getting your team. So how do you frame, this is what I need from a job description perspective, and how do you map the qualities of people who are coming in for the interviews, etc., to say, hey, this person will definitely suit the culture and the way that they're going to travel with the vision in mind. They're going to be with us. So it's like a partnership, the way that you're selecting your partner for
Yes.
your life, and
The marriage.
something similar exactly is what you're going to do with your team. So talk us through about the process in terms of generic process that you look at, and also the qualities.
Absolutely. I think it's an ever-changing what do you call process, first of all, because I think, again, going back to Avi's point, limited resources. Like, you may want to hire the best talent in the world, but often you don't have the money for it. So I think coming back to your question, Madhu, the first thing we did, and this goes back to the founding team as well, me, Rishabh, and Lee, and others. I think we hold the culture of the company very strongly, or uphold rather. And this was one of the first things we kind of almost coded or codified, and really thought about what type of company do we want to be, right? And we spend a lot of time talking about it as well internally, within the leadership team as well as with the wider team. Small things, for example, I think back in 2019, when we first raised our fund, like our pre-seed funding, we had a strategy away day in December, where we brought together the leadership team and a few of the kind of advisors, non-execs, and we just sat down and thought about, what do you want to become as a company? We talked about being kind of innovation and forward-looking, forward-thinking first. We wanted to focus on partnerships, because I think when we talk about our customers, they're actually partners for us rather than customers. They are going to be part of us, of our journey as well. Being open and transparent, first of all. And I think in this industry, especially in mobility and car rentals, transparency is a big issue, and we really want to uphold that. And then we wanted to talk about being, culturally inclusive and value diversity, and finally, kind of being commercial, which often, a lot of startups are trying to figure out how to become commercial as well. So these are some of the values that, or the culture aspects that we codified for Coastr. And then we went and started speaking about it and embedding that into our day-to-day, lives, day-to-day processes, how we communicate with each other. So coming back to the transparency bit, for example, I have been running, or we have been running this bi-monthly all hands on the deck call, right? And in that kind of hour every 2 weeks, we just talk about everything with everyone, right? There's nothing hidden. where are we with funding, to which customers we have won or lost. Everything is out there for people to really understand. And I think what that starts to create is confidence in the leadership team, and they see us as people who are ready to share and be open, and accessible as well. Secondly, it gives them the big picture, and then finally the alignment to the culture. So that's kind of how we talk about culture in the company. And the second bit, and on the recruitment side of things, I guess it's always very hard. I mean,
I know.
we have taken, I mean, especially in this year, for example, we have started to embed some of our human resources and human capital processes and thinking as well, especially in recruitment and talent recruiting. But we do emphasize quite a lot on those values, like especially when we are interviewing, we are trying to understand cultural fit first. If you may be the greatest, or the best software developer or engineer in the market, but if you don't have cultural alignment, we don't want you to come and join, because it only creates more disruption. Exactly. So we do place a lot of emphasis on cultural fit in the interviewing. Do we get it right all the time? We don't. We have had to kiss a few frogs before we found our thing. But once we have them, I think I personally put a lot of effort in retaining them. And for us, we want to invest in their growth alongside the growth of the company, which could mean several ways, in terms of giving them a career path, in terms of giving them sometimes even, options to shares options in the company to retain talent. So this is a huge focus area for Coastr, where if you are really good, we make equal investment and commitment towards their career growth in the company.
So in terms of building the team, just one quick question is that post-pandemic, where people are working from home, how are you taking this change? It's maybe when you're in office, you can do certain things, you can do certain rituals and events, and now people are working from home. How have you adjusted to that?
It is a really great question, Avi, because for us, the pandemic didn't make any difference. We were always a virtual team.
Okay.
Ground up when we were building the kind of Coastr team, I was in Edinburgh, Rishabh was in Bangalore. So there was no chance of actually having a, in-person office type of environment, right? And so we just build teams which are virtual. And if they happen to be in the same location, great, they can meet up in kind of a small local context. But I think we encourage more virtual teaming. And more and more, in fact, we have been trying to do that. A good example is in sales, for example, right now. A lot of the sales team was in the UK, or has been till now, but right now we are exploring the idea of having people in India, for example. So we've done our first hire, Nadeem, who has come in, and we are looking to build a sales team in India who would be working with the sales team in the UK not to sell in India, to sell in the UK and globally, right? So I think, pandemic has, if anything, helped us our context, because there is no need for actually having physical offices in place.
Great answer as usual. Bis, I think we talked the philosophies of Coastr, the work culture, the way that you shaped your career, founded Coastr, and all that. Now, coming back and shifting our focus to technology, let's talk about Coastr's technology. Let's talk about the current state of it, and let's also talk about the future.
I think, where do I start? Where we are today is Coastr is trying to do the foundational aspects, as I was talking about. So first of all, let me tell you what Coastr is, right? I think just for people who are listening to this podcast. So at Coastr, we're trying to disrupt the world of car rentals and mobility by providing more technology-enabled innovation to the sector, to the users. And we focus a lot on the SME independent car rental businesses, so that we can enable them and also help them kind of be more future ready. In future, this also gives us the opportunity to kind of create a more scalable solution where we can use the network effect to drive more competition and connect the smaller businesses in the market, and sort of like the Amazon model, build a marketplace or a supply network which can act as a supply chain to where the demand is, and that's kind of the end-to-end vision of Coastr. Where we are in that journey today is we have a software as a service platform, which is a digital car rental management platform. It's a kind of advanced product based compared to what is available in the market today, simply because what we have done is, instead of having small siloed functionalities which a lot of the competition provides today, we have streamlined all of that and built one single one-stop shop platform. Now the benefits of that are manifolds. One, from a cost perspective, now our users don't have to spend in 3 or 4 different technology providers. Secondly, everything is integrated, which means we can deliver more end-to-end automated processes, more end-to-end digitization of the business. One of the main goals is to make car rentals paperless. If you have ever rented cars, you will find the first thing is too much paper. Rental agreements, this insurance, everything is like lots of paperwork. We have streamlined all of those, and anyone using the Coastr platform, everything is electronic. There's no need for paperwork at all, or paper. And then there are lots of opportunities we have created because everything is integrated. So a lot of new ways of delivering the same old activities. And this is where we focus quite a lot on, which is trying to understand the outcome of a business and trying to design it with the best user experience so that it's no longer kind of convoluted and limited by kind of legacy processes. So those are the kind of things we deliver in terms of benefits. And finally, I think this is where the Coastr approach is so different in the market, is we call ourselves connected ecosystem platform. What I mean by that is we are actually open to the idea of working with other solution providers and bringing all of that to our customers in a single integrated joined up fashion, rather than trying to compete with them. And for that, we have made quite a lot of headway in building integrations with the likes of Stripe, for example, for digital payments, which gives our customers a whole array of taking payments in different modes, also selling online for that matter. We are working with a company called Smart Car for delivering connected vehicles technology, and Smart Car effectively are a US-based company and a partner of ours who they have built the kind of plumbing to all the major automobile manufacturers so that we can access the vehicle through APIs. So what that means that now, instead of needing a hardware to do things like keyless entry to the vehicle, and we are quite well placed and unique that way, we can offer it through a software only solution using the Smart Car platform. And then the future for Coastr really is very, very exciting, because going back to the kind of foundations, once we build a foundation, which is the connected ecosystem platform, it just leads to a whole raft of opportunities for us, starting from the mobility platform I talked about, which can utilize the kind of virtual fleet, the supply network we are building to deliver kind of end consumer experiences, to disrupting the world of insurance, to working with kind of manufacturers to provide vehicles to our supply chain. And I think there's a big convergence happening right now with kind of more and more flexible kind of ownership of vehicles coming in. So less and less people are ready to buy vehicles, so the car ownership is going down, but also the sharing economy is also picking up, and that's where rentals can play a huge game-changing kind of impact. However, today the rentals are not in that place. It's quite fragmented. Like, for example, if you want to, go and find something to rent for the day, you have to go to a specific set of businesses or set of, operators. If you want to rent for a slightly longer period, you have to go to a different type of operator. If you want to rent by the hour, you have to go to a different type of operator. So it's very fragmented from a user access perspective. However, we work with all those types of operators. So the network effect would be that the Coastr platform can deliver all of that in one place. And then finally, all those partnerships that we are building will then lead to additional opportunities where, going back to the kind of Amazon model, they started off as a online marketplace for selling books and other things. Now they are in AWS and one of the what do you call
leading cloud providers.
Leading cloud providers in that space. They are moving into content with Amazon Prime, etc. So all of that is being done on the base of the foundations of that business. So for us, I think the future is about how we can leverage the foundational network, the foundational technology, the foundational platform to deliver innovation in the mobility sector and the industry.
Yeah, I think there are a number of times that you quoted Amazon. So the one that I would like to quote is Amazon's flywheel concept, so which is exactly what you are trying to embrace. So they are finding something that is useful in a specific place. They're just not contained. They're just moving it across different places. And that those best practices are eventually the best practices across the different or array of sectors that they wanted to really plunge in, which is amazing. And good luck with that, in terms of the future, right? So electronic vehicles and driverless cars, etc., are all the talk of the town, right? So how are you going to think about embracing those in the future of Coastr?
Yeah, it's a great question, Madhu, and I think it goes back into the heart of our strategy. And as a person as well, I'm very much conscious of sustainable, environmental changes and practices. Building a sustainable, business which is responsible towards the environment and helps in reducing carbon footprint and contributes positively to the environment. So we have actually put that right in the center of our Coastr strategy. And part of that is in embracing or working with these innovative technologies like electric vehicles. So, our vision really is to be aligned with the kind of smart cities and sustainable mobility goals. And for that, we have kind of beginning of this year's pledge to the UN SME Climate Hub as well, that we want to achieve net zero by 2050 and help our customers do the same. But also from the technology itself, we already are making those investments to make sure that our platform is able to work with EV technology. In all due honesty, it's actually better because the way the new EVs are designed, Tesla is a great example. Everything is accessible online through APIs, right? So as long as the oil manufacturers are open to the idea of sharing access to the APIs, it makes our lives much more easier because we can get whole raft of data around how the cars are being run, their health monitoring, how they are kind of consuming battery technology, where in terms of usage as well, how they're being driven. And then we can also interact with the vehicles, which we do with the kind of more traditional vehicles through the telematics, etc. But we are able to then help with keyless entry and access and kind of immobilize the vehicle for any perceived security threat. I think the other one really forward-looking is kind of how we work with kind of autonomous vehicles as well. And we have been kind of tracking some of the changes in that. I think going back to Tesla, probably there was a recent kind of vision from Elon Musk where in future he's trying to get people not to own Teslas, and it becomes more of a car sharing approach where they would get a Tesla for their journey and then it would be shared between all the users. So not very different from a kind of rental model. So you can understand the kind of implication and also the potential opportunity for a platform like Coastr, because we can really help with all the connectivity and vehicle tracking, vehicle logistics, movement, because that's part and parcel of what we do on a day-to-day basis for our operators, the fleet operators. And then more importantly, I think where we can really address and create an opportunity for ourselves is a lot of the OEMs or the manufacturers don't have the fleet management, fleet operations experience. We can actually almost use our network to help them with that. So automatically the whole concept of subscription-based model, kind of flexibility in ownership can actually be handled by working with the Coastr network. And in future, we see that going to evolve as our capability grows.
Abhi and I have been constantly talking to different people across technology, and we are so excited that we have got absolutely no doubt this data sharing, the API sharing that you're talking about, that's going to come into the eyes of the regulators pretty much soon. And those marrying between the ethics and the risk component of bringing in new technology at the same time being safe is something that will come into play, and it will open up enormous opportunities for people like you and different entrepreneurs who are hungry for innovation.
Absolutely.
Biz, loved all your answers today. Just one last question. What's your advice for all the aspiring founders now? Just one advice if you have to give them.
I think be bold and think global. At the end of the day, you have to be very bold with your vision. If you're not thinking big picture, if you're not thinking, benefit across a huge number of users or a huge section of community, I think you'll not be taken seriously.
Very good one. Biz, there's one last thing, which is a rapid fire round, which will go on for 1 minute max.
Okay.
And we're going to talk about one word or one sentence answers here.
Okay.
Are you ready for it?
Let's go for it.
Favorite book?
Hundreds to Short Stories by O. Henry.
Favorite startup founder?
I think I've mentioned Amazon quite a few times. Jeff Bezos.
And what makes Biz not sleep?
I think it's about those unsolved problems which we haven't yet solved for our customers or our partners.
Inspiring Idea podcast.
Great idea. Inspirational.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Biz, for being with us today. It was great listening to your story, the passion and the startup stories and the technology. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys for having us, and Madhu, great to catch up again, and good luck with inspiring ideas, and I'm looking forward to future episodes of the